everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for the last of our Urban Bird Team webinars for the year. It's been a great series of sessions, so I hope some of you have been able to enjoy some of the other topics that we've had on this year. If you haven't, you can go to our Urban Bird Team YouTube channel. Bibby TV. If you just type BIBY TV into YouTube, you're going to see all the sessions that we have recorded previously, and this session will go up on there as well. Before we start, I just want to acknowledge the traditional owners of the lands that everybody is dialing into from today. I'm here on Dharawal country, just south of Sydney, and I want to pay my respects to elders past and present on this country, as well as the countries that you are all dialing in on as well. So before we get started, just a little bit of housekeeping. You'll notice, of course, that your mics and cameras are off. We usually get quite a large crowd, so we think this helps run things a little bit smoother. You will also notice that there is a chat function in Teams, and he's actually just posted in there now. However, I'm going to ask you all that you don't use that chat function, even though it's really tempting because it's right there. Teams only allow functionality to those who have a Microsoft account, and we know not everybody does. So instead, on the slide that's on the screen, you can see that there is a QR code and a website for a program called VVox. That's our Q&A function that we're going to use tonight. So you can either go through the QR code, or if you go to vvox.app and then put in that lovely string of numbers, 1500655486, and he's popped it in the chat there as well. That's going to open up a little browser where you can type in any questions you have for our speakers tonight. And there is also a little poll that you can take part in as well. So open that in another browser, get it ready with all your questions. And then at the end of the session tonight, after Pete and Jess have finished speaking, I will go through as many of those questions as I can and give them to the speakers to answer. But on to the topic for tonight. When we were trying to think of the name of tonight's session, because we always run it along the titles of Birds Meet, we thought our usual title isn't really appropriate. So Annie and I did a bit of brainstorming and decided that really we don't want our native birds meeting cats, hence the title that we have picked tonight. So BirdLife Australia is, of course, concerned about the impact that feral and domestic cats have on bird life across the country. We've been involved in a number of actions around steps to improve how the government at a range of different levels manage cat populations. But we know that many people love their cats, and there will be cat owners here tonight. I talk to cat owners all the time. I have family that are cat owners. Oh my goodness. We also know that a whole number of BirdLife staff actually are cat owners as well. While there needs to be firm legislative frameworks in place for how cats are managed in our urban cities and, of course, in feral populations, there needs to be education for cat owners. It is better for the cats to be kept indoors or in cat runs. It is safer for them. It gives them a really healthy and happy, fulfilling life. So a program like Safe Cat, Safe Wildlife is really exciting, and it's something that we have had a little bit of involvement in over the last few years as well. So I'm thrilled to announce that we have our two speakers from that program who are working on Safe Cat, Safe Wildlife from two different organisations. So first we have Pete Lancaster from, he's the Conservation Campaigns Manager at Zoos Vic. He has a Bachelor of Science background with an honours in animal behaviour. So he used to focus on skinks, but not anymore. He then really came to grips with the fact that people are really integral for conservation. So he began his career in conservation behaviour change. He's worked for Zoos Victoria for over 16 years in a number of different roles, but is really around connecting and inspiring people to take positive action for wildlife and for wild places. So we're going to hear from Pete first, and then we've got Dr. Jess Cove. Jess is one of the senior vets at RSPCA Victoria. Her role is as leader of Birds, Exotic and Wildlife Department at the RSPCA. She graduated as a vet from the University of Queensland in 2012 and has worked in a whole range of vet clinics, including in wildlife parks, as well as with companion birds. She's completed an internship with an avian specialist in 2018 as well. So she certainly has cat experience as well as bird experience too. She continues to find fulfillment at RSPCA, where her dedication to animal welfare intersect with this enthusiasm that she has for birds and wildlife. Thank you, Pete and Jess, for being here tonight. I can't wait to hear more about the Safe Cat, Safe Wildlife program, and I'm going to throw it over to you both now. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Holly, and good evening, everyone. Thanks so much for having us. Jess and I are super excited to be chatting to you about all things cats and how we don't want birds to meet cats. I'm Pete, as Holly said. I'm the Senior Manager of Conservation Campaigns at Zoos Victoria, and I'm joining you this evening from Wurundjeri country. It's a hot and stormy day out there. There's a bit of thunder, and I will apologise in advance if my dog barks in response to that. But it's great to have so many of you here tonight to listen to Jess and I chat about cats. So a little bit about me. I find sometimes you can learn a lot about someone by what their favourite bird is and why it's their favourite bird. And for me, my favourite bird actually always changes, and so does my favourite mammal and my favourite food. Really depends on context, and I'm sure, like a lot of you, it's hard just to choose one. But today I've kind of challenged myself, and I went with the crimson rosella. The reason being is that there's been a pair of them hanging around the eucalypt trees behind our house, and just hearing their call when they start perching on those branches just brings a smile to my face, and their beautiful red coloration helps as well. I've always loved animals and wildlife, and I think a big part of that, or the reason why, is that we had quite a lot of pets growing up as a child. I don't have a cat now, but this is a photo of me. It's a little embarrassing bringing out a kid's photo of me as a kid, but this is me with Whiskey, who is a cat that I grew up with and was around all the way through my formative years until I was about 14 or 15, when we had to say goodbye to him. But he played a huge part in me building a connection and empathy for animals and wildlife, and I think certainly led me onto the path of the career that I'm on now. So while I don't have cats, my mum still has cats, and they're now living indoors in my old bedroom. So I'm kind of still involved in looking after cats in some way. As Holly mentioned, I work at Zoos Victoria, and for those of you from interstate, you might have recognised us by one of the 4 zoos that we operate within the state of Victoria. All very different, and definitely invite you to come and visit us anytime. We've got Hillsville Sanctuary and Kyabram Fauna Park, which are both kind of Australian wildlife focused. We've got Melbourne Zoo, which is a city-based zoo, one of the oldest in the country, over 160 years old. And we've got Werribee Open Range Zoo, which is a large kind of African open savanna style zoo as well. We are a zoo-based conservation organisation, so as well as people having a great time at our zoos, we have a lot of work, or we do a lot of work in the conservation space to try to create a future rich in wildlife. In terms of zoo conservation work, a lot of people probably are aware of zoos doing things like breeding programs and releasing endangered animals back to the wild. And we do quite a lot of work in that space. Also other in situ conservation work like habitat restoration. I work on the community side, or the people side of conservation. Unfortunately, threats to wildlife, a lot of them are caused by people and by choices we make and behaviours we take. So whilst that can be hard to hear, it's also really inspiring and hopeful, because it means that people and we can do things to make a difference to wildlife. So at Zoos Victoria, we run a range of different behaviour change programs in which we kind of educate our community and our audiences and give them a chance to do something to help wildlife species. And one of those programs that we have is Safe Cat, Safe Wildlife. From a zoo side of things, and as Holly mentioned, there's a real conservation lens when you're looking at cats. There's a big issue with cats being a substantial threat to a whole range of wildlife species. But when it comes to pet cats in particular, there's a real welfare side to things and a people side as well with the owners. So we've come together with RSPCA Victoria to develop and deliver this program. So the Royal Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals, or RSPCA Victoria for short, they've been working to achieve outstanding animal welfare through education, advocacy, animal care and protection for over 150 years. So between the two of our organisations, we've got, I think, a really good combination of expertise on the issue of pet cats, the issue of animal welfare, and the issue of conservation and wildlife. So what we've done through Safe Cat, Safe Wildlife is try to set out ways to help and support cat owners to keep their cats safe and happy at home, whilst also keeping wildlife safe too. So for the first part of this webinar, I'll be chatting a little bit about what Safe Cat, Safe Wildlife is, how we're supporting cat owners. And in the second half of the webinar, Jess will be chatting through some practical advice on transitioning an outdoor cat indoors and keeping cats, enriched and happy while living at home. So in terms of the impact cats are having on wildlife, cats make fantastic pets, and a lot of people who work within our zoo and work with endangered species have cats as pets. But cats have descended from probably the ultimate in terms of adaptable predators. They're carnivores that can survive in a range of habitats. They can hunt and eat a wide variety of prey types as well, ranging from small beetles and invertebrates through to frogs, reptiles, and also birds and mammals too. So this means that unfortunately they can have a devastating impact on wildlife. And they have done that, unfortunately, not just here in Australia, but globally as well. We do have a number of different types of cat populations here in Australia. We've got, the feral cats, unowned cats, and pet cats. And for tonight and for the Safe Cat, Safe Wildlife program, we really focus on pet cats, those that are owned and cared for by people. So these are some stats on the impact that free roaming pet cats that have unrestricted access to an outdoor environment have on animals here in Australia each year, if they're given the opportunity. So as owners, we have the ability to limit that opportunity while still providing the best and safest life for the pet cats. You will have heard through some of the other webinars throughout the year that our cities and towns are hotspots for wildlife as well, and not just the common species, but threatened and endangered species rely on habitat around our cities and towns as well. Because this habitat is so important for those animals, the choices that we make in living alongside and as a part of nature can make a really big difference to those threatened species. And we both think that responsible pet ownership, including cat containment, is really important for us, our pets, and for the wildlife that we live alongside. Within the birding community specifically, some of you are probably already aware of some of the stats. You will have seen estimations and stats around the impacts that cats have on birds in particular. But it is sobering to see how many bird species are impacted by cat populations. And in terms of estimates that have been put together in terms of the impact on birds here in Australia, really big figures as well. And these are estimates based on kind of extrapolations and best methods. And we do see that each year different kind of figures come out, but there's no denying that pet cats, if left to roam and with access to birds, can have a huge negative impact on individual birds, but also bird populations too. And that's why we really don't want birds to meet cats, and we want our cats to be kept safe at home, either indoors or contained outdoors to the yard. all of the statistics that I've just shared with you and images like this one aren't particularly helpful in communicating the issue around roaming cats and the welfare-based implications of that. There are a lot of reasons why images like this don't work, stats about wildlife impacts don't work. And the first one is that cat owners are prioritising the welfare of their cats, and rightly so. They want to do what's best for their cat. But what a lot of owners don't realise is just how far cats can roam if outdoors, how many roads they cross, the dangers that they face. Secondly, when we have talked to cat owners in the past, a lot mention that their cat doesn't kill wildlife. And some have said that if their cats do kill wildlife, it's only introduced species that they're attacking. So there's a lot of different beliefs around cats and impacts on wildlife within the cat owner community. We know that when cats do hunt, they don't often bring what they catch or kill back home as well. So the visual impact isn't something that owners are typically seeing. Unfortunately, though, it is a really emotive issue whenever cats and wildlife come up, but you don't have to love one or the other. You can love both. And as I said, a lot of staff at Zoos Victoria that work with endangered species that are threatened by cats are cat owners themselves and love their cats a lot. So we can love both. It's just about how we look after our cats. Oops. So some stats around cat ownership in Australia. It's fantastic to see a lot of people having a furry feline friend within their family. And we get a lot of companionship and love from our cats when they're in the mood to give us that. And as I mentioned at the start, they can play an important part in terms of getting bonds or connected with animals and building empathy. It's a really important part of a lot of people's lives here in Australia. And a lot of young cats as well, which is a bit of a surprise. So this data and some data later on as well came from a pet ownership survey in 2023. And almost a third of the cats living in Australia are 2 years or younger. So young cats are generally a little bit easier in terms of transitioning and changing lifestyles to a more indoor lifestyle. When it comes to pet cats, we want to try to encourage and support cat owners to keep their cat at home more often and to reduce the number of pet cats that are roaming. So we went and asked cat owners, what do they need? What would help them to keep their cat safe at home? And our research showed that these two elements were the biggest factors. Firstly, the confidence in being able to provide what their cat needs in an indoor or stay-at-home setting. Not being able to find the information on what their cat needs, what they need to provide, and the perception that it's too hard. There's a lot of barriers in the way. It might be too expensive and too difficult to do. The other element was the belief or the agreement that pet cats can and should be able to be kept safe at home. So just the belief that cats can live a safe and happy life and have everything they need when being kept at home. And that was what prompted us to build Safe Cats, Safe Wildlife. Firstly, we have a website, safecat.org.au, and our website provides a lot of information through blogs, through internet articles that are written by staff and experts in their fields from both Zoos Victoria and RSPCA Victoria. And they're on a whole range of different topics around cats. You'll see there we've got information on the best house plants for cats, how to provide a sunny, enriching spot for cats to lounge and relax, how to give cats outdoor time. We had one of our zookeepers share some of the enrichment that we give to some of the big cats at Melbourne Zoo, the snow leopards, the lions, the tigers, and then they talked about how that enrichment can be modified and provided to pet cats at home. So lots of information and resources on our website to help cat owners find what they need. We also showcase really simple and affordable enrichment ideas. We call these cat hacks because you don't have to spend hundreds of dollars on a feed ball that has lasers and throws food at your cats. There's a lot of really simple things you can do and a lot of things that you can do with things that are already at home. things like modifying a bookcase or cardboard boxes. Anyone who's got cats out there know that cardboard boxes are where it's at for pet cats. So really simple inspiration and ideas. And we ask people to join our Safe Cats, Safe Wildlife community. And when they join the community, they receive regular email updates and a regular newsletter that provides the latest blog information, special promos and offers. And we invite cat owners to showcase their cat, share their stories of how they've transitioned their cat or how their cat is a stay-at-home cat and rules the house. So we get a lot of people sharing their stories. And when we put it up on our social media, both Zoos Victoria and RSPCA Victoria accounts, we get a lot of people sending us photos, incredibly cute photos of cats ruling the roost and owning couches. So we really try to celebrate people who are keeping their cats safe at home. So you can join the Safe Cats, Safe Wildlife community. Just because we're based here in Victoria, the information is relevant to anyone. And Safe Cats, Safe Wildlife is actually being integrated into some other zoos across the country as well. So you can scan the QR code to join our community. And I will say that I probably spent a little too long looking for a cat-shaped QR code, but I'm quite proud of it. So hopefully some of you scan the QR code and join our community. We have got over 30,000 cat owners that have joined us since we launched the program. We are seeing cat containment and the behaviour of cats being kept indoors growing over time, which is fantastic. This is, again, statistics from the Pet Ownership in Australia survey. And in the 7 years between, there's been an increase in people keeping their cats purely as indoor-only cats. And we're hearing a similar thing from the vets and councils that we work with. Cat ownership behaviours seem to be changing a little bit, which is really fantastic to see. It's not just us that are talking about cats being kept at home being best for cats, but there's a lot of other organisations that are starting to talk about it as well. Particularly here in Victoria, there's a lot more councils and local governments looking to implement legislation around cat curfews or cat containment policies. And we want Safe Cats, Safe Wildlife to really help cat owners as those legislation elements come in. So super encouraging to see more and more people keeping their cats at home. Not only is it great for the cat, and Jess will kind of chat more about the benefits to the cats of staying at home, but we can't ignore there's some really good benefits for us as well. For people who own cats, you get to spend more time with your cats, and there's nothing better when a cat chooses to snuggle with you because you know that they won't always. So when they do, it's really quite valuable. And we do hear a lot of comments from people in our Safe Cats, Safe Wildlife community that have transitioned cats, and their cats are now an indoor cat, and they're just having so much fun and enjoyment spending time and snuggling up to their pet. Another benefit with cats safely contained at home is that more and more wildlife might start appearing in your garden or in your surrounding neighbourhood as well as a lot of blogs on our website for cats. We do have a few blogs on our website for wildlife elements as well, including how to create a wildlife-friendly backyard, how to vegetation to plant to encourage birds and other wildlife into your area. So lots of information there. And that is a really nice benefit if you can sit with your cat snuggled up, looking out the front window, and you've got rainbow lorikeets or willy wagtails on the lawn. I think you're living your best life. When it comes to working in this space, we have had a lot of people get in touch about people, they know someone whose cat roams and they want to have a conversation with them and try and encourage them to keep their cat at home, or they're concerned about wildlife in their area. And it is something that, as I said, comes up a lot. It can be quite emotive as well. So I've just put together a couple of recommendations for you. If you do have someone in your life, a friend, family member, a neighbour, someone on your street that lets their cat roam outdoors all the time and you'd like to start a conversation, firstly is just to consider the cat owner's perspective. So remember, their cat is a family member to them and they just want to do what's best for their cat. So sometimes rather than kind of coming forward with the wildlife first, keep in mind some of the kind of welfare-based benefits of cats being kept at home that you could share with them. You're welcome to use Safe Cats, Safe Wildlife, and we've had a lot of people do that. They've taken resources, a blog, or they've taken screenshots of our website and included them in communications with friends or family members. So share things around and give them particular advice that might help support them in transitioning their cat and changing the way that they look after their cat. And lastly, change can take time as well. So don't expect if you have a conversation with someone that the next day their cat will be an indoor cat. The transition can take quite a bit of time, and every single cat owner and cat's journey will be different in that process. So it can take a little bit of time, but you can feel free to kind of check in and see what's working for them and see if there's any way that you can support them as well. So just a couple of tips if you are wanting to have a conversation with someone about their cat. So that's all from me. I'm going to hand over to Jess now, and she's going to chat through some of the ways you can have your cat looking as happy as this cat.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Pete. Great. Let me share my screen. Amazing. There we go. So as I said before, my name is Jess Cove. I'm one of the senior vets at RSPCA Victoria and am currently the leader of the Bird, Exotic Pet and Wildlife Department. So the birds on the left-hand side there are gang cockatoos, and similar to Pete, I think my favourite changes fairly frequently, usually depending on what species I'm actually seeing at the time. But gangs are definitely a lifelong favourite. I was involved in hand rearing and rehabilitating some gangs back when I was up in Queensland, and they're just fabulous. So I took that photo actually at a friend's property, and I just think they're a beautiful species. So the cat on the right-hand side there is my best cat friend, who's actually sitting at my feet at the moment. Her name is Audrey, and she will feature quite a few times throughout this presentation. And without a doubt, I think I am someone who has spent nearly all of my life working with birds and dedicating myself to their care, rehabilitation and conservation, and still have a cat friend who lives with me, who lives indoors and lives a very happy life. And that is definitely possible without a doubt. So tonight, and you can see that is Audrey there, snuggled up, very comfortable. We're going to go through, I'll tell you a little bit more about Audrey and my journey with her. We'll talk about safe cats being indoors, transitioning to life inside, ways to keep cats contained, and some enrichment and some training tips as well tonight. There we are. So this is Audrey. She is an approximately 13-year-old domestic short hair. She was found when she came through a vet clinic that I was working in about 10 years ago, and she was an unowned stray. So she was 100% outdoors when she came through, and I adopted her when nobody came forward to reclaim her. That is a picture of her 10th birthday party, and that cake is one that I especially ordered for her, which is made of cat food, which she loved it. She was disappointed that she wasn't allowed to eat it all at once. She could only have a small slice, but she definitely lives a very happy and very spoiled life. And one thing I mentioned, which I'll touch on later as well, is if you look at the way that she's sitting up and her eyes are towards the camera and her ears are pointing so far forward, so alert, she's actually looking at me, giving her a hand signal. So I'm actually giving her a signal to stay while I'm taking the photo, and she's waiting for her treat in that photo, basically. So one of the aims of keeping cats indoors, while it also keeps our wildlife safe, which is really important, it does help to keep our cats safe as well. And that is important because I would like particularly Audrey to be with me for as long as physically possible, and I do want to keep her safe. So she is an indoor cat. Risks with being outside sadly do include being hit by a car, fighting with other cats, so being injured that way, developing abscesses and infections, risk of FIV or feline immunodeficiency virus, which is a virus that they would carry lifelong once they contract it and would continue to affect them even after they recover from an initial injury. They are more prone to getting parasites. There's risks of being bit by a snake. For anyone coming to us from northern areas of Australia, they could get a tick and risk being paralyzed. And there's also, dogs and other predators out there as well. And these are just a few of the things that they risk being exposed to. And these risks just aren't inside, essentially. At least I hope there's no cats and no snakes that are risk of biting your cats in your house. But definitely they are a significantly reduced risk if they are kept indoors, and are much less likely to be subjected to injury and disease. And because of that, indoor cats will actually often live longer than cats that tend to go outside. So transitioning cats to indoors can come with challenges sometimes, without a doubt. And often I've heard people say, I tried keeping him inside, he just really didn't like it. It's really challenging. He's yelling at the door or something like that. And it isn't necessarily super easy to begin with, and it is a bit of a process. Every cat is going to be different. So I have actually done this myself with Audrey. So she came as a unknown stray. And the first night that she was with me was definitely challenging, without a doubt, because she didn't actually know what a litter tray was or how to use one. And so when it got to the point when she needed to go to the bathroom, she then was crying and didn't know to go in the litter tray. And so what I ended up doing that night was actually going out in the backyard and digging up some dirt and some leaves and some bark and stuff, and I put that in the tray and she went. And then we slowly transitioned her to cat litter after that, and it went really, really well. She just needed to know where she could go and what she could do. Providing lots of hiding places is really important, and it's something that's often underestimated when transitioning a cat to being inside. Cats will actually feel safer in an environment if they have lots of opportunities to hide. So if they can go and they know where the bolt holes are, even if they're not using them, even if they're out and about in the room, they'll feel a lot safer if they know where the hiding places are. One of the things we recommend at RSPCA is actually starting with a safe room. And so you have one particular room, maybe a spare bedroom or another sort of reasonable sized room like that, to begin there with them in that room with everything they need and lots of hiding places and toys and beds and things that will keep them comfortable, and their litter tray and everything. And then once they're transitioned to being used to being that room, then transitioning them to the rest of the house as well. And for a cat that's really used to being outside all of the time, sometimes it's just extending the length of time that they spend inside. So potentially after meal times or around play times when people are home or when there's quiet time, and extending the length of that time as well. If you're transitioning a cat to being inside and you now want it to stay inside, ensuring that your cat can't accidentally escape is really important. Cats, I've heard that said that they're kind of like liquid. They're really great at squeezing through all kind of small little holes and things, and can sometimes slip past you when you're going in and out a door or something. And then that can be really distressing as well. And it's worth going around inspecting all your fly screens and windows and balconies, chimneys, anything that you might have where they could potentially find a little bolt hole and slip outside or go missing. It's really important to have change happen slowly and gradually, and to not expect it to happen overnight, because they are adjusting to a new life, essentially. And adjusting this based on body language. So on the right-hand side, I have a picture of Audrey at the top, who is laying on a platform of her cat tree and is quite relaxed. I think she was purring when I took the photo. Her ears are really soft, and so are her eyes and her whiskers. And she, I think, actually was making biscuits at the time. Compared to the two cats below that, the one in the middle is in a hiding place, but its pupils are really dilated, its ears are down, the face and the whiskers are quite tense, and that is a cat that is really scared. And so if that's something that you're seeing with a cat that's transitioning to being inside, it's a sign that we need to go a little bit slower. We may need to give this cat a little bit more space. And the one at the bottom is very clearly saying, please go away. I feel really uncomfortable. The ears are kind of down, the eyes are looking straight ahead, the whiskers are really tense, and we're actually hissing at the moment. If you pushed it with this cat, you may get swiped. This cat also actually isn't hiding anywhere, like it's just sitting out on a bench and is clearly feeling quite uncomfortable. And so these would be signs to look at for in your cat. You want them to look more like Audrey up the top there, who's much more relaxed, and that's a sign that you're doing things right and that they're nice and comfortable. So there we are. Amazing. So catifying your home, making it a cat happy place, is definitely something that I have tried to do. Providing lots of vertical spaces for exploration. So cats actually aren't huge fans of spending all their time on the floor. They prefer to actually sit up high and be able to observe everything. So this is a cat tree that actually is to the left of my desk. And while a couple of days that I work from home, Audrey sits up above me the whole time that I'm working and observes me. I actually took that photo this afternoon, and that's what we did today. So she was purring and snoozing and watching me work quite happily from up there. So providing places to hide at all different levels, including up high and, ground level, mid-level, everywhere, is really great. Igloos, beds, tunnels, all sorts of things can definitely be used, and whatever suits the space that you have. But as Pete said before, they don't necessarily have to be expensive. And the number of times something arrives and then Audrey spends a week playing in the box. Cardboard boxes are amazing. They do a really great job, and you can tape them together. You can stack them on top of one another, tape together, hopefully safely, cut holes in the sides, put an old towel in the bottom for them to sit on, and do all sorts of things, and do that quite cheaply to make your home a really cat-friendly space. Having multiple water and toilet stations is something that I find is sometimes underestimated, particularly when there's more than one cat. If you have one cat and they're fairly comfortable in the space, you can often get away with one water bowl and one litter tray. But as soon as there's more than one cat, the actual general rule is 1 per cat plus 1. So if you have 2 cats, ideally you would have 3 litter trays. If you have 4 cats, ideally you have 5, which is quite a few. But yeah, it's something that's often underestimated and can lead to a bit of stress in cats if they then have to consider competing for different resources or sharing resources when they would prefer not to. It's one way to reduce stress is to have enough of these things. Toys we'll touch on a bit more in a bit, but toys that encourage their natural behavior will definitely help them to feel more comfortable in the space as well. And they'll, if they're anything like Audrey, carry them all around the house, all over the place. There we are. So as I mentioned before, cat litter and the toileting opportunities are often something that's actually underestimated and quite important, because one of the reasons that people often don't want to keep their cats inside is if they do begin to have problems with inappropriate toileting. So if the cat then, goes and pees on the carpet or something like that, it's not something we want to have happen. And then people are more inclined to let them out if they can't get them to go and use the tray. So looking at the tray type and the size of the tray and the number of trays that you have, if you have multiple cats, so again, 1 per cat plus 1, is really important. And the location of the tray is something that we shouldn't underestimate. So somewhere that's not in a busy place. And if you are going to have multiple litter trays, not putting them side by side, so having in different places in the house. So this is actually a photo of my laundry. If you look from here, so this is standing inside the house, you actually can't see the litter tray at all. It's completely hidden. There obviously is a big window there. Audrey actually has a covered tray. So from in that tray, it's a quiet area. I don't have a huge amount going on in the backyard. My neighbours are quite quiet next door. So even though there's a window, it's a quiet area. And the tray is actually covered so that she's completely enclosed and can't see anything else going on at the time. And that really quite works well for her now. Different cats will have different preferences for cat litter. And as I said initially, when Audrey was an unowned stray transitioning to being an indoor cat, we used dirt and bark and stuff, and that's what worked. And then we transitioned her onto the cardboard litter, and that seems to work really well for her. There are many other different types of cat litter as well, and different cats have different individual preferences. Just as people do with many different things, everyone has their favorite stuff. Cleaning is really important, particularly if you have more than one cat, because cats will not like to go where another cat has gone. Giving the tray a bit of a scoop, even just once a day, is often enough just to remove anything dirty that's in there, and then they have a clean place to go again the next time. And that can also help reduce inappropriate toileting and keep them going where they went to go, which is definitely helpful. So just because cats live inside, it doesn't necessarily mean they can't go out. They can still enjoy the outdoors, but in a really safe way, and a way that keeps them safe. Audrey actually does walk on a lead and can go outside that way. And there are many other ways to do it as well, such as this netting. There's actually cat netting that you can get. I really love the one on the bottom left, which is someone who obviously didn't have a huge amount of space, and they've just enclosed 2 windows. They've got a little hole. There's a ledge, so it's not completely ground level. There's a range of beds and things. I think that looks really great. If you really don't have a lot of space, that's a really good way to do it. Obviously, something like the middle one at the top that, is a enclosure that's built out the side of the house requires much more commitment, both financially and time. And if you're renting something like that, may not be possible. If you're renting something like walking your cat on the lead outside may work, provided it's a quiet area. They would still prefer to be in a backyard. They're not going to want to go next to a busy road, but there's definitely ways they can benefit from that as well. You can also enclose balconies, and there's options like the ones on the right hand side where there are fence rollers. So if the cats jump up, they can't get a grip. I haven't actually seen them used, but apparently they're quite safe, that they just kind of pop back down, because cats are often quite good jumpers. And then again, something like the bottom right-hand side requires a bit more outlay and depends on how much space you have. If you happen to be living in a city, it might not be possible. But enclosures that are actually portable, obviously that one's not set up yet, but there are options like that as well, to have cats enjoy some outdoor time, and they can do that way. So enrichment is a really important thing, and that's, I guess, the aim of all of this is to provide opportunities for cats to still express their normal behavior, so that they are still happy being inside, and feel fulfilled. And that's what we all want for all of our pets. So the cat who features in 3 of these photos, the 2 on the right and the 1 on the bottom at the left, is actually my friend's cat, Sparta. He is a very interactive boy and absolutely loves all forms of cardboard boxes, but is also more than happy for his mum to dress him up, and he has various costumes that he walks around in. But he's a massive fan of cardboard boxes and will happily lounge around like that cat in that box. And it doesn't all have to be as fancy as his little cat tank down the bottom there. It can be anything, and he will be into it. Different cats have different preferences for types of toys as well. Some of them will prefer feathers on strings and things, that you can chase things with, and they'll quite enjoy the stalking and the pouncing side of that. Others will enjoy things that they can bat around, and chase around that way. Others like to hide and pounce out at things, and all of that is quite normal behavior. Having different shapes, colors, textures, and heights and things, different feels of things, also all helps with enrichment, basically, and with novelty, really. Cats really enjoy novelty. They want things to be new all the time. So one of the things that I do with Audrey to also try and help me save some money that way as well is that I rotate her toys. And so there's a bag in one of my closets, and I have toys that are out all the time. And then when she stops looking quite as interested in them, I put them away and grab some others. And then she's like, oh, look, new toys again, and is really happy and excited to see them, and gets to do that. I brought a couple of her favorites. Hamster. sadly has been with us for 10 years now and is a solid favourite. It's just a round ball of fluff. Generally, I'm not allowed to touch him, but she's currently napping, so I'm allowed to. But she just walks around with him in her mouth and yells, and that's what we do with him. There is also a mouse that she has, and I don't know if you can hear it, but it squeaks. And so if she pounces on it, it makes sounds, basically. I'm not really sure it sounds like a squeak, but it makes a sound. And she really enjoys that. Hessian mouse is a sad state of affairs, but has been thoroughly ripped up. And then there are things like this, and she's actually not a big fan of this one, but I have friends who really enjoy these toys with their cat. And it's essentially just a little padded pouch that makes crinkly noises and a tail. And so if they jump on it again, it makes a sound and something happens. And cats quite enjoy that too. Scratching is also something that's really important for cats, and they really enjoy having a really good scratch at something. Audrey uses one post on her many posted cat tree quite frequently. She doesn't touch any of the others, and I have no idea why, but one post is destroyed. The other thing that she also has is just a bunch of cardboard scratch things that are on the floor, and I just picked them up really cheaply at a discount store, and she uses them nearly all the time. And so stuff like cardboard and stuff can be really great for them to scratch on as well. One of my uncles with his cat that he had, he went outside and got a log that had a lot of bark on it, and he put that in the laundry, and his cat scratched on a log with bark on it. And it was just a small one, and he got it in the backyard. Didn't cost him anything at all, but it worked really, really well, and his cat was really happy. So there are lots of options that you can do without a doubt. So training is one thing too that I think can be really, really enriching for cats and is often underestimated. I tried very hard to get you a video of Audrey, but unfortunately I couldn't get it to upload. But Audrey, I had never had a cat before I got Audrey, and so I trained her like a dog. And so she sits and stays and begs and turns in circles and gives you her paw. She'll happily come in the shower as well. And she's just a little dog cat, basically. She's very food motivated, and often it's trying to find what is going to motivate them to enjoy. And one of the things that I often say is that training of animals happens whether or not humans participate in it. And we often don't think of it that way, but particularly cats are animals that love routine. So when we leave the house and we come home from work every day at a certain time, they learn that time, and that is training. And they learn what time we give them their meals. They learn what times we play with them and when we'll be available. They'll learn what time we sit on the couch and watch TV and what time they're going to be sitting on our laps. And they have that routine. And that is training, even if we're not actively participating in it. So if we learn what motivates them, and for Audrey, it happens to be food. If we learn what motivates them and what they enjoy, we can then start to participate in that training, and then that becomes mentally stimulating for them as well. It also really increases the bond that you have with your cat and that your cat has with you, because it's something really positive that you can do together. You can incorporate play and really enjoy doing that together without a doubt. And this is one of the reasons why Audrey does so many tricks, because I really enjoy doing it. And if I pick up her bag of treats, she will come running from anywhere in the house because it's something she enjoys as well, which can be really beneficial. And it allows them to express natural behaviours at the same time, which is really great. So I absolutely encourage you to join the Safe Cat, Safe Wildlife community. There are so many videos and things up there, and blog posts and information and everything that you can get a lot of benefit from and learn a lot more of these tips for keeping cats happy indoors, because it's definitely possible to be both a massive fan of birds and spend your whole life working with birds and be dedicated to conservation and still have a cat best friend who lives indoors and keeps you company all the time and that you really enjoy having with you. So thank you very much. I will stop sharing my screen now. There we are. Aha, amazing.
Thank you so much, Jess. Thank you so much, Pete. That was fantastic. As a non-cat owner, I'm kind of wishing I had a cat now. I will say, though, that cardboard boxes work effectively well for dogs and for children. So They both they get used effectively in our place as well.
Yeah.
So if anybody has any questions in the last sort of 10 minutes, please pop them in that little VVox section that we sent you the link to. I'm just having a check. Everybody's very quiet tonight. I don't know if it's like coming to the end of the year. I haven't got any questions coming in, but I can think of some things to ask you both. So Pete.
We'll also introduce.
Oh, here she is.
Audrey.
Here she is.
Hello, Audrey.
Good girl.
What a princess she is.
She's good.
Very lovely. So what strategies do you guys use in Safe Cat, Safe Wildlife to get people to take part? How do you reach your audience to get them involved?
There's a couple of ways we do that. Each of our zoo properties has some activations and elements. So as people are walking past a snow leopard or a lion, they're seeing the enrichment, and then we've got some signage and videos and animations kind of talking to that. So people can learn about the campaign, join our community during a visit to any of our zoo properties. We also have quite an active kind of social media presence as well. So cats rule the internet, so we kind of have lived into that a little bit. So, you know, some great cat content we put on our social media, through emails to things. And we also work quite a bit with vets, councils, other organisations as well who are interested in cats and wildlife, and we can share them with them a range of materials that they can distribute and provide as well. And then, Jess, there's also at RSPCA Victoria some ways that happens too, I think.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Audrey's decided to make herself known
Yeah.
now.
She's the star of the webinar.
Exactly.
I think I'm happy to step aside.
Yeah, without a doubt. Yeah. Yeah, and I believe that we use a lot of your like resources and handouts and things as well, for Safe Cat, Safe Wildlife. Yeah.
I guess extending on that, Jess, without being able to speak for all vets, what sort of role do you think vets and vet clinics can play in that sort of transition that we want people to make into keeping cats indoors?
I think there's definitely a role for people to seek out vet advice, particularly around the behavior of their cat, and what is making their cat happy. If their cat is unhappy, if there's something, signs of stress, is there something that's causing their cat pain that they weren't aware of before? And so they can definitely get examined and see if there's anything that their cat is not otherwise telling them. And they can often provide advice, if there are toileting problems or transition problems, multi-cat households, and managing that can definitely be something that vets can help with as well.
Great. What are some of the, I guess, common challenges that you encounter when trying to convince people to keep their cats indoors or contained? I mean, either of you can answer this. I think, Pete, you touched on it a little bit, but I guess what are the big hurdles that you see?
I think, as I kind of chatted about, a lot of cat owners don't want to see or acknowledge their cat being or having an impact on wildlife, I guess. So when you see your cat, your cat's a happy, friendly cat. You don't kind of see it if it is roaming. But for us, the big thing that we try to communicate is that your cat's actually at risk, and there are a lot of dangers that you don't realise. I know with my mum, with one of the cats that she adopted, she let the cat kind of sit on the front porch and would go off and do a thing in the house, and then that cat would disappear and kind of not come back for a few hours, and you have no idea where that cat's gone, if it's found other cats and got in a fight or encountered dogs. So just really trying to communicate the risks, and to let people know that it doesn't have to be complicated or expensive. We don't have to build giant cat runs in your backyard and spend thousands upon thousands. There are lots of different ways that you can do it that kind of works best for you and your cat.
Yeah, look, I absolutely agree. I think there was some work out of Adelaide, I think it was, where they put trackers on domestic cats and just showed how far they can absolutely roam. Jess, there's been a question in here on whether indoor cats need to be vaccinated.
Yeah, I think that it would be ideal, particularly when they're quite young. because we need them to build an immunity to the things that we're vaccinating them for. All catteries require your cat to be vaccinated as well. So even if your cat is inside, they may still go to a cattery or something like that. And they may leave the house to go to a vet clinic or something as well. So there may be times when they do leave the house and need to do that. I think if you are looking at an individual situation, then it would be worth asking your own vet as to your own cat situation and what they would recommend. But probably the ideal would be that they would be vaccinated as well. Yeah.
There's been some questions coming in now too, which is great.
Amazing.
So Sarah's asked if there is a training method or tactic to teach your cat to remain indoors even if doors get opened to outside. Some houses might not have fly screen, and so keeping a cat indoors can then be a challenge. Any suggestions?
My cat is trained to sit and stay, which is probably an exception rather than the rule. But particularly when guests come over and things, I will often get her to sit and stay beside the front door rather than have her run out and do that. Or, other ways can be, someone's about to leave the house, so they get a special toy over in another area to try to reduce that risk as well. Sometimes it is also like if you're really struggling and they're really trying to get out of the door, two things. One could be to actually physically pick them up and put them back inside as you close the door, if that's what it comes to. Or depending on how your house is set up, my house actually has a hallway that I could close off. And so I could close off the hallway and they could be in the rest of the house without any risk of her running out the front door if I needed to do that. So sometimes it's adjusting the environment as well.
Sure. There's a few other vet-specific questions, but I'm going to throw this one to Pete, and I might jump in as well if I can remember the stats. Are there specific species of birds that are more susceptible to cat predation than others?
It's a really good question. I haven't got species kind of specific info, but I did read some research around birds that nest or forage on the ground are particularly vulnerable. And I think there's a size range, kind of small, medium-sized birds up to around 400 grams, something like that.
I think that's ringing a bell for me too.
Yeah.
Ground dwelling, ground foraging in that sort of small to medium size are most susceptible. As a slight anecdote, without wanting to, I don't want to get on a cats are bad bandwagon because I think tonight's been really positive and really important. I do have a friend that had an outdoor cat called Tom, of all things, and he was a tomcat. I was in the middle of doing my PhD studying superb fairy wrens, and they told me, oh, yeah, Tom used to catch these little birds with pointing up tails. It doesn't catch them anymore. And I had to very delicately say that's because he killed that family. That territory is gone now. So they can have that sort of significant impact. But of course, depending on where the cats are and where you are sitting in the landscape is going to depend on the types of birds that are going to get impacted. But it does tend to be those sort of small to medium sized ones. There is a question here sort of related for Jess. Will toys that contain feathers be an issue if a cat then goes outside? So would sort of feathers sort of trigger any sort of increase in predatory behaviour, do you think?
I don't know if there's any research to say whether or not it actually will, like if we actually have any data on that or anything like that. I noticed that Audrey will sit at a window and quack at a bird anyway. And so I'm not sure whether or not a toy with a feather would actually increase or decrease her likelihood of catching that bird if she went outside, because I think there's a lot of instinct involved that they have evolved this way and that's what they're interested in, particularly in the way that the birds and small little creatures like that tend to move. If they run along the ground or they fly, they're often attracted to that movement anyway. If your cat has transitioned to being inside and is no longer going outside and they're not at risk of getting out and predating on birds and things like that, then potentially they could have toys with feathers because we're reducing that risk in an environmental way from keeping them inside. If you're still in the process of transitioning your cat, maybe there would be another toy that they could have as a favorite instead.
Great. And then another one on cat enrichment indoors, and this might be the last one because we've just ticked over 8 o'clock, is does an indoor cat need to eat or have access to grass? Because Heather's cat is eating maidenhair ferns and she would prefer that the cat not be munching on her ferns.
I don't know whether or not they actually need to. And I know lots of species like dogs and cats eat grass, and we don't really exactly know why they do it. There is actually cat grass that you can grow and do that way. Otherwise, my pot plants are all on high surfaces out of the way. So, yeah, and I mean, provided the cat is having an otherwise very balanced diet and being provided with that, then there's no reason why nutritionally they should actually need it. But some of them do seem to enjoy chewing on plants as well. Yeah, biting holes in leaves. Yeah.
Nice, fun. Well, look, I think we might call it there. I think I could think of a whole host of other questions that I would love to ask, but I will just email you later. But thank you both very much, Jess and Pete, for sharing all your extensive knowledge with us, and I think giving people really great tips for, how to talk to your community, of course, but then if you're a cat owner, how to make sure that your cat is healthy and happy, which is incredibly important. So thank you very much. We have recorded tonight's session. So I am going to, it'll be downloaded. We're going to put it on our YouTube channel. There is a link in the chat. If you go to YouTube and go to BIBY TV, then it will be up there in the next couple of days. You can also search through all our previous sessions for the year. There's some great ones if you missed out on seeing them live, so please go and have a look. Thank you so much again, Jess and Pete, for joining us. Thank you so much, everybody, for coming along tonight and for coming along to our previous sessions that we have had throughout the year. This has been a really, really fun and really interesting series of webinars that I've really enjoyed being a part of. A massive thank you to Annie, who's online, as one of my colleagues who has been helping me run these sessions and doing an amazing job. We will have them back again next year. We may take a break for January, but we will be back early in 2024. So please keep a lookout in your emails. You'll also get a link to the recording sometime in the next week or so as well. Everybody have a fabulous Christmas. It is fast approaching. Have a safe and healthy start to 2024 with your birds, with your cats, with all your other pets. And thank you everyone for joining us again. We will see you next year. Thanks very much. Bye everyone.
Amazing. Thank you.
Bye everyone.
Bye. Thank you.